All right, we are live on Facebook and YouTube. This is Bible Study Live from Grace Baptist Church in Weatherford, Texas. My name is Larry Stanley. Thanks for joining us. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms out there. Happy Mother's Day to all the moms in here joining us live at Grace Baptist Church. And if you want to join us for the service, you can get down here by 10:30 and see Pastor Wes. Are we on Genesis 11 today, Pastor Wes?
Are we what?
On Genesis 11?
We are not. We're going to deviate to a Mother's Day message.
Mother's Day, a special Mother's Day message. So if you're watching on Facebook and YouTube and you want to hear a Mother's Day message, come on down at 1400 Rusk Street. Is that right?
1300
North Rusk.
1300. I was close.
1300 North Rusk. Yeah.
1300 North Rusk, Weatherford, Texas. We'd love to see you here. Come on in. Service starts at 10:30. All right, this morning we will be reading Mark 5. We will start at the beginning of Mark 5. Then they came to the other side of the sea, to the country of the Gadarenes. And when he had come out of the boat, immediately there met him out of the tombs a man with an unclean spirit who has dwelt among the tombs, and no one could bind him, not even with chains, because he had often been bound with shackles and chains. And the chains had been pulled apart by him, and the shackles broken into pieces. Neither could anyone tame him. Always, night and day, he was in the mountains and in the tombs, crying out and cutting himself with stones. When he saw Jesus from afar, he ran and worshipped him and cried out with a loud voice and said, "What have I to do with you, Jesus, Son of the Most High God? I implore you by God that you do not torment me." For he said to him, "Come out of the man, unclean spirit." Then he asked him, "What is your name?" And he answered, saying, "My name is Legion, for we are many." Also he begged him earnestly that he would not send him out of the country. Now a large herd of swine was feeding there near the mountain. So all the demons begged him, saying, "Send us to the swine that we may enter them." And at once Jesus gave them permission. Then the unclean spirits went out and entered the swine. There were about 2,000, and the herd ran violently down the steep place into the sea and drowned in the sea. So those who fed the swine fled and told it in the city and in the country, and then went out to see what it was that had happened. Then they came to Jesus and saw that one who had been demon-possessed and had the legion sitting and clothed and in his right mind, and they were afraid. And those who saw it told them how it happened, and to him who had been demons-possessed, and about the swine. Then they begged and pleaded with him to depart from their region. And when he got into the boat, he who had been demon-possessed begged him that he might be with him. However, Jesus did not permit him, but he said, "Go home to your friends and tell them what great things the Lord has done for you, and how he has had compassion on you." And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis all that Jesus had done for him, and all marvels. All right, so let's talk about this. So that was Mark 5, 1 through 20. We have a demon-possessed man who has been cast out of society, right? He's possessed by multiple demons, and he's been cast out of society. He's living in the tombs. And Jesus comes to him, and the demons recognize Jesus. This was what gets me all the time. The demons recognize Jesus every time, right away, right? We have humans that won't recognize Jesus, but we have the demons. As soon as they see him, they know exactly who he is. And this man's been possessed, and he's outside society, living in the tombs, and he's cast out. And we see how strong the demons are because he's put in chains, and he's shackled, and he keeps on breaking them. And so this man's written off as crazy, and he's living outside of society. But Jesus comes and sees the demon and casts him out right away. And when he says, "What is your name?" And he answered, "My name is Legion, for we are many." I've thought about that a lot. Do you guys think that he's saying there are many demons possessing that man, or do you think he's saying there's many demons in the world? If you got a comment on Facebook or YouTube, type it in the chat, because
I've always taken it as many inside of him.
Yeah, me also.
But I'm not sure.
yeah.
I've never really broken
It
down.
could go either way, yeah.
Yeah, I've kind of went back and forth, but I think maybe it has multiple meanings. Maybe the answer is both. Both are right?
Both are true.
Yeah, both are true. There are a lot of demons in the world, and this guy was possessed by multiple demons. And then the pigs. So we have some pigs, and the demons beg not to be tormented. So the demons know they're going to the lake of fire, right? They know where their eternity is going to be spent, and the time hasn't come yet, but they're begging Jesus not to send them there early. And so Jesus sends them into the pigs, and the pigs run off the cliff and they drown, which I always found kind of curious as well. I'm like, why the pigs? And then in other gospels, and we see kind of hints at it in this gospel, the people get mad at Jesus for doing this, right? They get mad because he just cost them it cost them a herd of pigs, right? They don't care about the healing Jesus just did. They don't care about the miracle they just seen. They care about their pigs. They care about their swine. Jesus just cost them money. That's all they care about, right? Who cares if this crazy man's healed and the demons come out? You know, they saw a live exorcism. They don't care about that. Jesus cost them 2,000 pigs. So they basically tell them to get out of the city. They kick God out of their city. What else did y'all catch in that?
Well, these couldn't have been Jewish people.
Yeah.
Because they don't mess with swine. So they were definitely not spiritual people because, like you said, they cared more about their income than this man's life. This man had a horrible life. I mean, who couldn't be sympathetic with this man? But at the same time, they lost a lot of money. So,
Well, the demons wanted to be put into the swine. Did they want to be away from the Jews? Since the Jews, like he said, the Jews won't have anything to do with the swine. So, but the demons wanted to be put into the swine.
I've never thought about that. That's a really good catch, a really good point. Yeah. I mean, so that way maybe Jesus couldn't be around them if they were in the swine, but the swine ran right off the cliff either way, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah, I've never really thought about why the demons wanted to go in the swine.
Yeah, the demons begged to be put into the swine. So they wanted to be away from Jesus and away from the Jews.
Yeah. Makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I've always wondered why pigs, and so now we know.
Right.
All right. Yeah, it makes a lot of sense. And I think the most amazing part of this chapter is the very end. And he departed and began to proclaim in Decapolis, and that Jesus had one done for him, and all marveled. So Jesus takes this man that had been demon possessed for years, been tormented for years, been cast out of society, and he makes him his first real apostle in that area, right? He's the first one preaching the gospel in that area. So this guy who had spent years being tormented and living in tombs and just cast out of society, he now is the first guy Jesus used. And it's just another example of how God can use anybody, anywhere, anytime to do what he wants.
Who he chooses.
Yeah, he uses who he chooses. He casts the demons out of the sky, and then he uses them to preach. All right, anything else there on Mark 5:20, 1 through 20? All right, we'll pick it up on Mark 5:21.
So, Decapolis. So that's the 10 cities. They were Gentile cities. I just saw that to publish in Decapolis. How great thing. So, yeah, he was an evangelist to the Gentiles.
Started preaching the gospel to the Gentiles, right? Scott brought up a point. Both are unclean, pig and demons. Yeah, great point, Scott. So the pigs and demons were all considered unclean, right? So they all went together. All right, picking it up on 21. Now, when Jesus had crossed over again by the boat to the other side, a great multitude gathered to him. And he was by the sea, and behold, one of the rulers of the synagogue came, Jairus by name. And when he saw him, he fell at his feet and begged him earnestly, saying, "My little daughter lies at the point of death. Come and lay your hands on her, that she may be healed, and she will live." So Jesus went with him, and a great multitude followed him, and thronged him. Now a certain woman had a flow of blood for 12 years, and suffered many things from many physicians. She had spent all that she had, and was no better, but rather grew worse. When she heard about Jesus, she came behind him and in the crowd and touched his garments. For she said, "If only I may touch his clothes, I shall be made well." Immediately the fountain of her blood was dried up, and she felt in her body that she was healed of affliction. And Jesus, immediately knowing in himself that power had gone out of him, he turned around in the crowd and said, "Who touched my clothes?" But his disciples said to him, "You see the multitude thronging thronging you, and you say, 'Who touched me?' And he looked around to see her who had done this thing. But the woman, fearing and trembling, knowing what had happened to her, came and fell down before him and told him the whole truth. And he said to her, 'Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction.' While he was still speaking, some came from the ruler of the synagogue's house who said, 'Your daughter is dead. Why trouble the teacher any further?' As soon as Jesus heard the word that was spoken, he said to the ruler of the synagogue, 'Do not be afraid, only believe.' And he permitted no one to follow him except Peter, James, and John, the brother of James. Then he came to the house of the ruler of the synagogue and saw a multitude, saw a tumult, and those who wept and wailed loudly. When he came in, he said to them, 'Why make this commotion and weep? The child is not dead, but sleeping.' And they ridiculed him. But when he had put them all outside, he took the father and mother of the child and those who were with him and entered where the child was laying. Then he took the child by the hand and said to her, Pastor West, someone needs your help. How to pronounce this one? Tala Tai.
I have no idea.
Anyone? All right. He said, which is translated, 'Little girl, I say to you, arise.' Immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age, and they were overcome with great amazement. But he commanded them strictly that no one should know it, and said that something should be given to her to eat." All right, guys. So here we see a couple of things at play. One, there's this guy, and he has a sick daughter, and he's begging Jesus, right? He would do anything for his daughter, and she's dying. She's on her deathbed, and she's obviously very sick because she actually dies. And so he's begging Jesus to come, but Jesus is having issues getting there because there's a big crowd around him. Everybody's crowding him, and he's got a mob around him. He's trying to get to her, and while he's trying to get to her, there's a woman that's been sick for years and years and years. And the interesting thing about this woman is she was considered unclean, right? She shouldn't even have been there. She was considered unclean by the Levitical law. She shouldn't have been around a crowd. She should have been cast out. But she was so desperate and so sick, she had to get to Jesus. That's where her faith comes in. And as soon as she touched Jesus, Jesus knew, like, hey, there's somebody with faith. It wasn't about the healing to him. He could heal anybody he wanted. He saw somebody with great faith. She just wanted to touch his clothes. She didn't want to touch him. She didn't want to talk to him. She just wanted to touch the back of his clothes, and she knew she would be healed. And he felt that faith. It says when the power left him, I think it was the faith. It wasn't the healing. It was the faith that she had that he felt. What do you guys think about that?
Well, I think, it says, then the disciples said unto him, Thou seest the multitude, and sayest, Who touched me? Even his disciples were saying, you have this opportunity, all these people out here, and you're worried about this one, but the one had the faith, so, and it shows that, each and every one is important to Jesus. He's not there just to touch the multitudes. He's there for each one to feel, each individual to feel, and of course he had the faith, but each individual to feel special, to know that they are special, that if they have the faith.
Yeah, great point, Billy. Thank you. And I've got to imagine that she wasn't the only one touching Jesus, right? Have you ever seen like a very famous person or somebody walk through a crowd and there's so many people around them?
I just saw a video of J-Lo yesterday, actually, and I was like, just let the lady get in her car.
Yeah.
She couldn't even move.
And there's still like paparazzi, or I don't know if you
probably was the same.
Yeah.
For him.
And so, like, if you grew up here in the 80s, the Von Erichs, when they would come out, everybody would flock to him and try to touch him. So I imagine this is what's going on with Jesus here. Like, everybody's trying to touch him, right? So it wasn't that one person got to his garment. He was being touched by a lot of people. But when this woman touched him, he knew there was something different about her.
Right. She had the faith.
All the
other ones were just there because of, like, he was a celebrity.
Right. They wanted to see
But she was there because she had the faith of healing.
Yeah, she was desperate.
Who he was, yes.
Yeah, we see desperation from her, and then we see desperation from the Father. They were both desperate, and they went to Jesus in faith. And when they were desperate and went to Jesus in faith, he healed them. And what did he tell her? Daughter, your faith has made you well. Go in peace and be healed of your affliction. So all she had to do was touch his cloth, and she was healed.
I think he was saying even that it wasn't touching him that healed her. It was her faith that healed her.
Yeah. Oh yeah, absolutely. It was her faith that healed her.
It seems like I read somewhere that was like a prayer cloth too. that
He was wearing a special cloak.
like a, I don't know, one of those prayer cloths, you know, that
Like a rabbi
Jewish
would
people-
wear.
Yeah.
Could have been. Could have been.
Like the what is it called? That they're gonna be wearing when they come back. We're gonna be wearing a special cloth, right? When the witnesses come back.
Oh yeah. I don't know what it's called.
Do you know what I'm talking about?
I don't know what it's called.
You know what I'm
Oh,
talking about?
loincloth?
The cloth that they're going to be wearing
Linen cloth? I think
when they
it's-
come back.
The two
The
witnesses?
two witnesses.
They're going to be
They're
wearing
supposed to
linen.
be wearing some sort of special clothing, cloth.
It just
I
says they'll
can't
be dressed.
remember what it's called though.
Revelations just says that they'll be dressed in linen. They'll be in
Oh.
linen cloth, is what it says. So, just linen cloth.
I don't know what it is.
Yeah, it's like a
Special.
yeah, just like a robe, like a old Jewish robe. It says they're not going to dress fancy. It's basically what that verse is saying.
It probably was like similar, maybe what he was wearing.
Yeah, I think they're just going to be in like plain robes and plain clothes, and the priest wore like. Have you ever seen that thing that goes around them, like that
Like
goes
Philip.
around? Yeah, it has like the Star of David on it on the sides or some
It
lines. I think.
Just kind of wraps around the neck.
Yeah, so that might be what she touched. So, all right. Let's see. Where are we at? Oh, and something else interesting about this is, so when Jesus healed the little girl, he doesn't even touch her. He just does it with his words, right? Like the woman that was sick, she wanted to touch Jesus to be healed. The little girl, her father had the faith, and he just said, "Jesus, just say the words," right? And he got ridiculed for it. Like they made fun of Jesus because everybody thought she was dead. She was physically dead. Like she wasn't breathing. And Jesus just said, "Little girl, I say to you, arise." And immediately the girl arose and walked, for she was 12 years of age. So a 12-year-old just got resurrected by Jesus. And the first thing he says is, "Feed her." Feed her. She's hungry. I guess being dead makes you hungry. I don't know. Maybe that works up an appetite. So, but don't try that at home, right? Don't try dying to see how hungry you get. All right. Anything else you guys want to talk about in 5 before we move on to 6? 6 is a long one with lots of stuff in there. Man, we got a lot of stuff to cover in 6. Y'all ready? All right, 6 1. Then he went out from there and came to his own country, and his disciples followed him. And when the Sabbath had come, he began to teach in the synagogue. And many hearing him were astonished, saying, "Where did this man get these things? And what wisdom is this which is given to him, that such mighty works are performed by his hand? Is this not the carpenter, the son of Mary, and the brother of James, Jose, Judas, and Simon? And are not his sisters here with us?" So they were offended at him. But Jesus said to them, "A prophet is not without honor except in his own country, among his own relatives, in his own house. Now he can do mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them." And he marveled because of their unbelief. Then he went about the villages in a circuit teaching. All right, so this is Mark 6, 1 through, what was that, 1 through 6? 1 through 6. And here, Jesus goes back home. He goes back home. He's like, "I'm going to show everybody, the miracles I'm doing. I'm going to show everybody who I am." And they don't believe him. This goes back to, there's a country song called 17 where it says, "You're always 17 in your own hometown." So wherever you grew up at, the people that knew you when you were a teenager are going to look like you're still a teenager. And they're going to think of you as a kid. And then when you're there, you're going to immediately have flashbacks to when you were a kid, when you were younger, right? You think about stuff that happened at this place, at the Dairy Queen, or whatever. And you have flashbacks. You're always 17 in your hometown. Even Jesus is 17 in his hometown. This guy that's going around doing miracles and healing people and touching people, healing the sick. They look at him and go, "He's a carpenter. He's not God. He's a carpenter," right? And then he still heals the sick for them. He's like, that's the funny part. Now he could do mighty work there, except that he laid his hands on a few sick people and healed them. So even though they didn't believe, he still healed the sick, right? They looked at him, they disbelieved him, and Jesus still healed the sick because that's what he does. What do you guys think?
Yeah, that's a famous verse for him. A prophet. not being honored in your own hometown. A lot of prophets were killed actually, like that. But I mean, Jesus was perfect, so he didn't make. I can imagine for the rest of us, it's harder to take us seriously once we grow up and become mature in faith and everything. There's still people around in your hometown that knew you back before you knew Christ, and they're going to judge you like, I remember him.
I think
let's go to church and listen to him.
Yeah, we're saying even his own didn't know who he was.
Mm-hmm.
Well, his brothers didn't.
Yeah, still didn't know who he was, or didn't believe who he was, I guess.
Yeah, and it alludes to that. Yeah, it alludes to that here, and then when we read the Gospel of John, we see that too, right? His brothers actually challenge him to go do, if you're the Messiah, go do a miracle. Go to the festival, speak. And so here we just see his family didn't believe in him, which that's a huge blow. You talk about people that never have anybody believe in him. Here's God in his own family. I mean, so his mother's not there. Oh, I don't think Mary's there, right? It just says he's the son of Mary. Because as far as I know, Mary always believed in Jesus. I don't think she knew right away he was the son of God from her experience. But the brothers maybe had a little jealousy there, right? They didn't believe in him, didn't want to believe in him because I'm sure there was some kind of sibling rivalry. And if you're going to have a sibling rivalry with Jesus, you're probably going to lose. Right? That's not the person you want to have a sibling rivalry with. All right, picking it up on 7. And he called the 12 to himself and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them the power over the unclean spirits. He commanded them to take nothing for the journey except a staff, no bag, no bread, no copper in their money belts, but to wear sandals and not put on 2 tunics. Also, he said to them, in whatever place you enter a house, stay there till you depart from that place. And whoever will not receive you nor hear you, when you depart from there, shake off the dust under your feet as a testimony against them. Assuredly, I say to you, it will be more tolerable for Sodom and Gomorrah in the day of judgment than for that city. So they went out and preached the people should repent, and they cast out many demons and anointed with many who were sick and healed them. All right, so in 7 through 13, you see Jesus sending out his disciples for the first time. Right? He's sending them out. And this is a lesson about faith too, because it says, take nothing with you. Go out, preach my name, and don't take anything with you. People will provide. This is you, the disciples showing faith in Jesus. Right? And then he tells them, whenever, and whoever will not receive you nor hear you, when you depart from there, shake off the dust under your feet as a testimony against them. What does that mean? Does anybody know?
But don't let their negative thoughts continue on with you.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, shake the dust off, right? Yeah. Like we see this all the time.
Cast their thoughts aside, cast their beliefs aside, and preach what you know to be true.
Yeah, preach what you know. We see this all the time in the world because you talk to an atheist, they're not going to believe, right? What are you smoking? You can tell them the gospel, but some people you just can't reach, and they'll want show me evidence, and they're like, oh no, that's not true, and they'll find something wrong with it. So this tells us, we're supposed to go out and preach the gospels, but when somebody rejects them, even Jesus, the one unforgivable sin is rejection, right? So when somebody just constantly rejects you, shake the dust off your feet and move on. Save it for somebody that's going to listen and somebody that's going to accept it. I mean, you can't reach everybody. That's what he's telling them. Like, if they reject you, shake the dust off and move on to the next one. All right. Any other thoughts on 7 through 13? Everybody awake? You guys are being quiet this morning. All right. This is Bible Study Live from Grace Baptist. We're in Mark 6, picking it up on 14. Now, King Herod heard of him, and his name became well known. And he said, John the Baptist is risen from the dead, and therefore these powers are at work in him. Others said it is Elijah, and others said it is the prophet of like one of the prophets. But when Herod heard it, he said, this is John who I beheaded, for he is raised from the dead. For Herod himself had sent and laid hold of John and bound him in prison for the sake of Herodias, his brother's wife, for he had married her, because John had said to Herod, "It is not lawful for you to have your brother's wife." Therefore Herodias held it against him and wanted to kill him, but she could not. For Herod feared John, knowing that he was just and a holy man, and he protected him. And what he had heard him, he did many things and heard him gladly. Then an opportunity day came when Herod on his birthday gave a feast for his nobles, the high officers, and the chief men of Galilee. And when Herodias, the daughter herself, came in and danced, and pleased Herod and those who sat with him, the king said to the girl, "Ask me whatever you want, and I will give it to you." He also swore to her, "Whatever you ask me, I will give you up to half my kingdom." So she went out and said to her mother, "What shall I ask?" And she said, "The head of John the Baptist." Immediately she came in with a haste to the king and asked him, "I want you to give me at once the head of John the Baptist on the platter." The king was exceedingly sorry, yet because of the oath and because of those who sat with him, he did not want to refuse her. Immediately the king sent an executioner and commanded his head to be brought. And he went and beheaded him in prison, but his head brought his head on a platter and gave it to the girl, and the girl gave it to her mother. When his disciples heard of it, they came and took away his corpse and laid it in the tomb. All right, there we kind of get a flashback. They're trying to figure out who Jesus is, and somebody thinks he's John the Baptist. Herod thinks he's John the Baptist resurrected, because we get the flashback in the story. Herod kills John the Baptist. Personally, I always think John the Baptist kind of got a raw deal, right? He got a bad deal here. Basically, this girl goes and dances for the king, and this isn't the same Herod from the beginning of the Gospels. This is his son, I think. And so the daughter goes and dresses.
Herod Antipatus.
Yeah, Herod Antipatus. So the daughter goes and dances for him and his friends, and he's so happy with it. He says, "I'll give you whatever you want." And he's thinking monetarily, right? He's thinking, "I'll give you up to half my kingdom. I'll give you a bunch of stuff." And she goes to her mom, and her mom says, "Just kill John the Baptist and give me his head." That's pretty brutal. That's pretty, I mean, that's, yeah, sick, twisted. And that puts the king in a hard place, right? Because he made an oath. I mean, you think he makes an exception about half his kingdom, but you think he might have said, "Hey, I'm not going to take anybody's life either," you know? Or he might not, that might not even thought in his head, like, she's going to ask me to kill somebody. So, I don't know. It says he didn't want to do it, and we see accounts of, like, King Herod and John the Baptist, where he would go to him and talk to John the Baptist and pick his brain, and he wanted to get to know him and know who he was. So he was curious, but then he puts himself in a spot where he has to kill him, right? He puts himself in a bad situation, and he made a promise. And so what's he going to do?
Well, am I the only one that thinks it's creepy that he had his stepdaughter dance for him?
That's very creepy, right? That's very creepy. And I mean, we don't know what kind of dancing it was, but I can assume it wasn't doing the hokey pokey. You know, it wasn't. It wasn't something we would see. So, yeah. All right. That's the story of John the Baptist.
Well, now I see where the women get half here. See, he offered her half the kingdom. See, so
Yeah.
this is where it started right here.
Right. All right.
They were doing.
What's that?
So those women definitely knew what they were doing.
Yeah.
I mean, the daughter, I don't even know if she knew her mom was going to ask for that, honestly. I mean, the daughter.
Yeah, because she asked the mom, what she wanted.
Yeah, and we don't know a lot about the mom, but we can tell she's probably not a good person, right? She left her husband for the king. She's jumping around. She's probably not a good person. And she wants John the Baptist dead. I mean, I don't know.
Satan was definitely at work.
Yeah, definitely. There's a lot of bad stuff going on there. All right. Anytime you see the name Herod in the Bible, something bad's going to happen, right? Something bad's going to happen after that. All right. Then the apostles, picking it up on 6:30, then the apostles gathered to Jesus and told him all things, both what they had done and what they had taught. And he said to them, "Come aside by yourself to the deserted place and rest a while." For there were many coming and going, and they did not even have time to eat. So they departed to a deserted place in the boat by themselves. But the multitude saw the departing, and many knew him, and ran there on foot from all the cities. They arrived before them and came together to him. And Jesus, when he came out and saw a great multitude and was moved with compassion for them because they were like sheep not having a shepherd. So he began to teach them many things. When the day was now far spent, his disciples came to him and said, "This is a deserted place. Already the hour is late. Send them away that they may go into the surrounding countries and villages and buy themselves bread, for they have nothing to eat." But when he answered and said to them, "You give them something to eat," they said to him, "Shall we go and buy 200 denarii worth of bread and give them something to eat?" But he said to them, "How many loaves do you have? Go and see." And when they found out, they said, 5 and 2 fish. Then he commanded them to make them all sit down in groups on the green grass. So they sat down in ranks in hundreds and fifties. And when he had taken the 5 loaves and the 2 fish, he looked up to heaven, blessed it, broke the loaves, and gave them to his disciples to set before them. And the 2 fish he divided among them all. So they all ate and were filled. And they took up 12 baskets full of fragments of fish. Now those who had eaten the loaves were about 5,000 men. So the last line, 5,000 men, there's probably women and kids there too, right? So there's probably more than 5,000 people he's feeding with the loaves and the 2 fish. So what did you guys catch there when Jesus feeds the 5,000? What jumped out to you?
What was your question?
Wait, what jumped out to you in that section?
If he's able to provide, I mean, he's able to provide no matter what the circumstance and no matter how impossible it seems. It'll blow your mind.
Well, also it looks like the disciples have doubt to me, because he says, "Send them away and let them fend for themselves." And Jesus says, "No, we'll take care of this. Have faith. We can do this."
And they're like, "How are we supposed to do this?"
Yeah, really.
Chronologically, I don't know, Pastor Wes, maybe you do or somebody knows. So chronologically, do you think this happens before or after Jesus meets the woman at the well and the disciples go, "Where are you going? Are you going to get food?" And he goes, "The food I have, the bread I have, you cannot eat of." You think that happens before this or after this? Do y'all know?
I'm not sure.
I would say
You say after? Because I'm thinking it's before, but I don't know for sure. But I think it's before. And here he's showing the disciples how to use that. I don't think he's saying feed the disciples physically. He's going to use that as a lesson. He's saying feed them with my word.
The woman at the well. I don't know, because in some of the earliest manuscripts, the woman at the well is not even in there.
Yeah.
So we don't know when that was put into the Bible. I do believe that it's part of Scripture, but I don't know at what point
Chronologically.
they canonized it.
Oh.
So I'm not sure.
I definitely think the 2 lessons go together, right? I think he's saying feed them, and I mean, it's multiple means. Again, it's got feed them, give them bread, give them food, and then he's saying feed them, give them my word, feed them, you feed them, you give them my word, you preach. You're the disciples. I sent you out. You go feed the 5,000, right? You feed them, and then when they're still thinking about food, he's like, "Okay, I'm going to show you this. I'm going to show you." He blesses the food, he breaks the food, and then it multiplies, right? That's important too. Blesses, breaks, and multiplies. He thanks God for it first and blesses it, and then it multiplies.
Well, it's just like you say, sinning is, he's telling the disciples the same thing. They spread the word. It's the.
Oh yeah, no, yeah, good point. Thanks, Willie. All right, so there he feeds the 5,000 men, and I've read it's like really like 7,000 people when you count the women and children. There was more than 5,000 there that he feeds with 2 fish and a few loaves of bread.
I thought the woman at the well was the first one to be identified.
Maybe it is before this. Well, that's what I think. It is before this because this is a follow-up lesson on that, right? So, yeah.
I don't know.
Yeah. All right. Jesus walks on the sea. Immediately he made his disciples get into the boat and go before him to the other side, to Bethsaida. While he sent the multitude away, and when he had sent them away, he departed to the mountain to pray. Now when the evening came, the boat was in the middle of the sea, and he was alone on the land. Then he saw them standing, straining and rowing, for the wind was against them. Now about the fourth watch of the night he came to them, walking on the sea, and would have passed by them. And when they saw him walking on the sea, they supposed it was a ghost, and cried out, for they all saw him and were in trouble. But immediately he talked with them and said to them, Be of good cheer, it is I, do not be afraid. Then he went up to the boat to them, and the wind ceased. And they were greatly amazed themselves beyond measure, and marveled, for they had not understood about the loaves, because their heart was hardened. All right, so here Jesus goes to his disciples in a storm again. This is almost a repeat of what we saw in chapter 4. We've already saw this in Mark. We already saw Jesus
over and over again.
Yeah. The disciples get in trouble on the sea. They get in trouble in the sea, and they freak out, and Jesus has to come save them. They do this over and over again. I mean, the disciples were knuckleheads. And here it even says their hearts were hardened, which is interesting, because it even tells us they were having it. Jesus was saving their knowledge for a certain time, right? We know they all opened their hearts to Jesus. They all were martyred for him, except one. But yeah, here their hearts are hardened, so they're not getting the full information. They're not getting the full knowledge. Usually when you see hearts hardened, it's like the Pharaoh. His heart was hardened against God. Like, you usually see hearts hardened against God. This one...
But did he harden their hearts because they wouldn't listen? Because he can do that.
Yeah.
He has hardened people's hearts for not listening.
Yeah, like the Pharaoh, right? The Pharaoh in
Yes.
Exodus, his heart was hardened because he wouldn't listen.
So that's what I'm thinking. Is that why their hearts were hardened? Because they keep failing to listen to what he's telling them?
Maybe. I think their hearts were hardened. I think it was more he was saving them for the right time, right? He didn't want them to have all this knowledge right now because he needed to use them. He's training them slowly. They're like his employees or his new hires, and he's showing them this and showing them that and training them slowly. So I don't think he wanted them to get it all. I think this was more to protect them, and when they did get it, just let it fall out. So I don't know. This is one of the times when I see the word heart-hearted, and I'm not sure what it means, because we know what it means when we were talking about the Pharaoh, right? We know what it means when it's saying an evil king's heart was hardened or whatever. Here, I just don't know.
I just don't think he's ready for the disciples. Like you say, he's saving them. It's not ready. They still want all the focus to be on him right now.
Yeah.
They don't want it to be spread out all over. They want all the focus to be on Jesus right now. And then when the time is right, then it explodes. He sends them out when he's ready.
I don't think they fully understood till after the resurrection and the Holy Spirit and all that. I mean, it's just like, that's when we understand.
Right.
It's when the Holy Spirit hits us, quickens us.
Are there any Star Wars fans out? Anybody watch Star Wars?
Yeah.
Okay, so I know I see those confused looks. So
We're in a weird
yeah.
back
So in Star Wars, there's this guy named Luke Skywalker, right? And he's training to be a Jedi, a great warrior. But something happens and it makes him go out and fight a really bad guy before he's ready. And it doesn't work out well for him. And I think that's what's going on here. The disciples aren't ready, right? So Jesus is just setting them up, and Star Wars, that's what happens to Luke. So that's where I was going with that. I've never seen Star Wars, don't worry about it. Sorry. All right, we got friends in Australia watching. Hi, Ed from Australia. Thanks for watching. All right, picking it up on, where are we? 53.
Yes.
When they headed across over, they came to the land of Gennesaret and anchored there. And when they came out of the boat, immediately the people recognized him and ran through the whole surrounding region and began to carry out on beds those who were sick to whatever they had, wherever they heard he was. Wherever he entered into the village, cities, or countries, they lay the sick in the marketplaces and begged him that he might just touch the hem of his garment. And as many as touched him were made well. Yeah. So this tells me the word about the woman got out, right? Because they're just wanting to touch his garment now. They're like, hey, all she did was touch his garment and heal her. So the word got around pretty fast about this miracle healer. What do you guys think?
Is that not the place where the demon possessed man? And he wanted to go with Jesus. However, Jesus told him to go back to the town and tell him.
It's a different city. This is in Jesserite. That was in Damascus. Yeah, it was a different place. But it also, in 56, it covers multiple places. He entered into the villages, cities, and countries that lay the sick in the marketplaces. So we don't really know where all he went here. He was going around a bunch of places and healing.
I think it still just points to what I said before, that they just want all the focus to be on Jesus right now.
Mm-hmm.
You know, like I said, they're not ready for the disciples to go out yet, or he's not ready for them to go out yet, which is kind of what you said. He's saving them to that time. So I think that's, it just puts so much focus on him right now.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, it's all about him, and the word spreads so fast. I mean, this is what's really interesting. Like, you think about the communications back then. How did people talk? I mean, how did news get out? There was no cell phones. There was no papers. There was no nothing. You talked. Yeah, exactly. You talked. And for word to travel in that region this fast about one guy that was a healer, that's nothing short of a miracle, because news didn't travel fast back then. Now news is instant, right? Something happens in Israel, we know about it in America 2 seconds later. Back then, something happens in Israel. America's never, well, America didn't even exist, but something happens in a country far away from you. You're not going to know about it for days, months, weeks. It's going to be a while before you hear about it. That's not happening here. It's immediate. Like Mark says a lot, it's immediate, 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 immediate. Everything's immediate. So the news about Jesus is spreading.
So using Christ as an example, how important do you think it is to meet people's needs in order to reach better and to instill faith, promote faith? I mean, if you have really serious health needs or something, that's all you're going to think about 24 hours a day. You're in pain. You don't have the luxury and time and to think about spiritual things.
Mm-hmm.
You're thinking about just what's immediate. But Jesus relieved them of those things and allowed them to have faith and grow spiritually. And you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It's like people, like civilizations that are spend all day long just searching for food just to survive. They don't have a lot of time for art and crafts,
Yeah.
and civilized things, because they spend all their time on what's urgent, which is putting food on the table. So I think it's the same way with meeting people's needs. I think it's important in ministry that we meet people's needs, immediate needs. And that kind of frees them up, I believe. And it shows that Christian charity, love, which promotes faith.
Yeah, absolutely.
It does actually help. I see it with some of my clients, just super hard and negative, because society has completely turned their back on them because of their circumstances. And then when I can help a person find a home and place them and give them a second chance, I see it change their whole personality from the first day to then now when they have another chance. Like, it gave them, it's just incredible how it changes their outlook. It makes them better people in society. They're not as angry at the whole world because somebody actually took time to help them.
Break down walls.
Exactly. And it's so much in our society. They're just shunned for every little mistake. So everybody, you can do all the good things and you make the one mistake. And that's what everybody holds against you for the rest of your life. It's
Except
that
God.
one mistake, you know?
The doors are closed to you
Yes,
unless somebody helps you.
exactly. So I do think the world does absolutely need it.
That's what I have problems with, like felons. If they do their time and get out, why do you continue to hold that against them? Don't allow them to get jobs, you know. You're giving them no other choice but to go
Right.
back to crime
Yeah.
Absolutely.
because they can't make a living.
Yeah, and
So
that's not what.
that needs to be totally rehabbed.
Yeah,
And
that's
these are
not
the
what.
type of people I'm helping.
Oh, I
Yes.
didn't know that.
So yeah. Yeah. It's been a real eye opener for me on that side of things because you just don't think about it because it's not you living it, right? But then when you see it firsthand and you see how it's changing that person's attitude, it just takes that one person, you know, and that one person, he's going to pay it forward. You know, now he's able to help his mother. So how many other doors does that open up, right? And that's how we have to look at it.
That's the lesson there. I think is faith grows, right?
Yes.
That's the important lesson. Faith
Yes.
grows. If you have faith and you can show somebody faith and they see it working in your life, it's going to grow. Like Carly said, it's going to build their faith. The faith you lead by example. Jesus leads by example with faith. What impresses God? Faith, your heart. You're never going to impress God with your brain. It took me a long time to learn that. You're never going to be smarter than God, right? You're never going to impress God with your brain. All you're going to impress Him with is your faith and your heart and your love for Him. That's the only way to impress God. We got a couple of questions in the chat I want to hit before we get out of here. Rob Mack, does Jesus bring peace or does He bring the sword? Pastor West, I will throw this one to you.
Does he bring peace or does he bring the sword?
Yeah, does Jesus bring peace or does He bring the sword?
Well, he is the ultimate peacemaker. He did bring peace. The sword, huh? I'm trying to figure out what you mean by that. The law is the sword. The law shines a light on your sin. What would the sword be?
Well,
represent?
I don't think you can have one without the other.
So it goes together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
That's the, you know, there's not a one way answer to that because you know you have one, you have the other. I think He brings it all.
Yeah, Revelation says He's going to come back with a sword in His mouth, right? The sword out of His mouth. That's the word of God.
Yeah.
So I think He's going to bring the sword as the word of God. That's how He's going to pass judgment on the world. But then after that, peace, right? So it's one, then the other. It's both are coming. He brings both. But it's the sword first, then peace. So that's how it's going to be in the future. And you don't want to be a part of that sword. You don't want to be there when that sword comes down. This is interesting. Travis, I think Matthew 5:17-19 tells us we still have to follow the old laws of Moses. All right. Let's read that. Matthew 5-17. 5:17-19.
Matthew or Mark?
Oh, Matthew. Sorry, Matthew.
Going to Matthew.
Yeah, so this is a question about Matthew 5:17-19. Does it tell us that we still have to follow the old laws of Moses?
I think not that
All right.
destroy the law.
5:17. Here we go. Do not think that I came to destroy the law or the prophets. I did not come to destroy, but to fulfill. For assuredly, I say to you, until heaven and earth passes away, one jot or one title will by no means pass from the law until it is fulfilled. All right. So, Travis, thanks for the question. We appreciate it. What do you think? Does Matthew 5:17-19 tell us we don't have to follow the law? Or that the law, we still have to follow the law?
Well, like the Ten Commandments, I mean, the law is the Ten Commandments, right? So we don't murder people or commit adultery. Yes, we have to follow that. Jesus said you can combine all the Ten Commandments into two things: love God with all your heart, soul, and mind, and love others. You know, so yes, we're supposed to do that. Yeah, absolutely. Now, all the other amendments and things that they came up with over the years, the Pharisees, no, we're not under all that. The feasts and the celebrations and all the food and all those rituals. No, we're not under that. Jesus says so. So,
But it still doesn't save you.
well, none of it saves you. Yeah, it doesn't save you.
Yeah, I think Janice is onto something here. It doesn't say. I think what Jesus is saying here is, look, I fulfilled the law. You're not going to be judged by the law anymore. You're under a new covenant. You're under grace now. This is before the new covenant happens. But he's telling them, I fulfilled the law. You're not going to be held up to this imperfect standard that you can't withhold anyway. You're right. We're not going to hold you to this standard and say you have to do all these things we made up, these 660 laws we made up from 10 commandments. You don't have to do those anymore. I'm fulfilling it. I'm going to be perfect. You can't. So I'm fulfilling the law. Yes, still follow the 10
But
commandments. Yeah, but I can
But
say,
try it.
yeah, I'm here. The law is fulfilled. I am the one that's fulfilling the law. You're not judged by the law anymore, but the law is still in place, right? I'm not replacing the law. The law is still in place, but you have a get out of hell free card, basically, is what he's saying.
And those animal sacrifices were never good enough.
Yeah, they were a temporary solution, right? They were putting a Band-Aid on sin, is what they did. They just put a Band-Aid on sin. All right, guys, anybody got anything else? Let's see if we got any more questions in the chat before we wrap it up. All right. So thanks everybody for the questions. Billy?
I like to go back a little bit. We were talking about before, and especially Carly was talking about, I know she helps a lot of people that need help. And what I would say is a lot of times we're not looking at need, we're looking at want. And there's a big difference between need and want. And what they need is Christ in their life to start with.
Amen.
And then their needs, I believe their needs will be fulfilled if they get that. But too many times, we want to give people another chance, and I'm that way also. I believe in that. But too many times it's not need, it's want. And you're not helping somebody by giving them everything they want.
Absolutely.
And that's where we get off course, I think, especially with family members. We're trying to help them. And you need to step back and look and say, this is not what they need. This is just something that they want.
Yeah, for sure.
Enabling, correct.
Enabling.
Yeah. And I feel for you in your position. How can you? I know that you have a big heart. And so your job has got to be really, really hard. So.
Well, I do what I can.
Yep.
I can't help everybody.
Right.
And there are people out
They
there
will
that
use
are
you.
never going to change.
Yeah.
And they want everything for free, and whatever. They want you to do everything for them. And no, you can't. You have to draw the line,
Right.
of course. But I think for the majority of people, they do want to change. They just don't have the right guidance. Like there's nothing for these. There's no resources for these people, and they don't have families. They might have been out of prison, or a lot of them do want to change, but like you say, they keep getting stuck in the same situation. So then, what's the answer? Yeah, you can't help everybody, but we can at least do what we can and try. Then they pay it forward. I agree.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, guys, we're going to wrap it up. One more question here from Rod Mack. Pastor Wes, this one's going to come for you. Do you have a specific prayer to ask Christ to reveal himself in your life?
I just ask. I don't have a particular prayer I don't have prayers that I repeat all the time. Like some Catholic people repeat prayers over and over. I don't do that. I just have a relationship with God, and if there's something that I need, I pray that the Holy Spirit will reveal it to me through His power and His grace and mercy. And I pray for wisdom all the time because I need it.
Well, I think it's going to be different for different individuals, because, there can't be just a prayer to, just a one prayer for everybody. You know, it depends on what you need and what you want, and your relationship with God.
I always tell people go to Romans 10, 9 and 10. It tells you everything you need to know right there. So you want to start? That's a good place to start. Jessica, what she say? You're doing the best you can, but it's important to be moving forward in a positive way. Yeah, that's what Carly and Billy were talking about. Yeah, keep moving forward in a positive way and faith. All right, guys, we're out of time. It's Mother's Day. Happy Mother's Day. You have about 15 minutes if you want to come down here and join us at Grace Baptist Church, Weatherford, Texas. Thanks for watching online. We'll see you next week. It'll be Mark 7 and 8. So moving fast. Thanks for watching. See you next week.